Let's turn to the Federal Reserve,
Yes.
if we might, because that's why we're here in that building.
Yes.
The Open Market Committee meeting apparently in person for the first time in a couple of years. You opposed Chair Powell's renomination. You have called him, quote, a dangerous man. I will give you credit. You said it straight to his face in a hearing.
You bet.
Why are you so strenuously opposed to him, number one? And number two, apart from that opposition, how do you grade his stewardship of the economy?
So my concern starts with the fact that the Fed has two responsibilities. One is monetary policy. We're going to see what happens with raising interest rates today. But the second is regulation. And failure to pay attention to regulation really can put our economy at risk. How do I know that? It happened back in the early 2000s, and we saw the consequences with the crash of 2008. Which, remember, the pain for that was felt across this country and around the world. How many millions of people lost their homes, lost their jobs, lost their savings, lost their retirements. So it's important to have a Fed and a Fed chair who is diligent about both jobs. Chair Powell has worked on many regulations during his last 5 years as chair of the Federal Reserve, and always his tilt is in the direction of let's deregulate, just a little. And it's not sometimes he regulates a little more, sometimes he tightens down, sometimes he loosens up. It's been loosen up, loosen up, loosen up, loosen up. And, you know, it's like a ship. You just move it a little bit, and then you move it a little bit more. If you keep moving it in the same direction, after a while, you've made a profound change. And that change is one that puts our overall financial system at a risk. So I judge his first 5 years as failing, not because we've hit the economic crash that can cause, but because it has shown a tilt in the direction over and over and over of loosening oversights over our financial
So let's stick with regulation. And yesterday, Sarah Bloom Raskin withdrew her nomination to be the vice chair in charge of regulation. You supported Ms. Raskin. How do you feel about that withdrawal, number one? I assume you're disappointed by it. And number two, would you like to see Richard Cordray, the former head of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, be nominated in a successor role?
So let me start with number one, and that is, no, I'm not disappointed. I'm outraged. And I'm outraged because this particular nomination was brought down by the oil industry. Sarah Bloom Raskin said basically the same things about climate that Jerome Powell has said, but there's a difference. Sarah Raskin actually understands regulation, is willing to use it, and really called it like it is. She said that increasing problems in climate and the climate crisis can actually threaten both our financial system and our economy, and the Fed needs to take account of that. She was right. The oil industry spent big bucks to bring her down, and yesterday they succeeded. That is bad for Sarah Bloom Raskin, bad for our economy, but it is also bad for the Fed, and it is bad for our nation. No one, and certainly not an interest outside the financial system, an interest that just says we want to protect big oil, should have that kind of power.